We now know how Russiagate got started, and we know that it was all a lie started by the Hillary Clinton campaign. That the Hillary Clinton campaign realized she was in trouble because of her email scandal, which had broken in 2015 in the wake of Benghazi. We found these emails of hers that were weird, and people were like, what server was that on, and so on. And it created a problem for her all the way up to Election Day 2016.
But I could see them and hear them in my ear, and they said, Tulsi Gabbard, you're coming out and criticizing Hillary Clinton and her foreign policy record. Aren't you afraid of what she'll do to you? He asked me this on live television on MSNBC. And you're laughing. I laughed too. I was like, no, I am not afraid of what Hillary Clinton can do to me.
Megyn Kelly and Tulsi Gabbard stepping up to roast Hillary Clinton is like unleashing a tag team of sharp tongues and relentless truths on a political heavyweight who thought she'd already seen it all. From campaign blunders to decades of controversies, they leave no stone unturned. Hillary's polished image crumbles under the weight of their pointed critiques, exposing the contradictions, scandals, and missteps that kept her from claiming the throne she desperately sought. This isn't just criticism. It's a full dismantling, served with biting wit and unfiltered fire.
Clinton, of course, is the original election denier. I'm sure you voted for her in 2016.
Well, she's not an election denier.
She absolutely was the OG election denier.
First of all, she came out before the sun had risen to concede the election to Trump.
And then spent the next 4 years saying he was illegitimate. He was an illegitimate president.
Okay, well, first of all, she didn't say he was an illegitimate.
Yes, she did.
You tell me exactly what she said.
She said those exact words repeatedly.
They are using the same old tactic that the deep state's propaganda arm in the media uses. Whenever they come across something that is true and that doesn't go along with whatever their narrative is that they're trying to shove down the throats of the American people, they first usually ignore it, as they did when I first released these documents.
If you're enjoying this video, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon. Megyn Kelly's razor-sharp commentary cuts through the veneer of establishment politics, highlighting Hillary's inability to connect with everyday voters despite years in the spotlight. She peels back layers of scripted speeches and rehearsed empathy to reveal a politician more concerned with optics than substance. Kelly mocks the endless attempts to rebrand herself, turning every campaign slogan into a punchline about missed opportunities and misplaced priorities.
They stole his first term as president. These absolute liars who run around trying to act like they're the protectors of democracy completely ruined it, tried to undermine it at every turn and at the highest levels with lies, with out-and-out lies that were really serious and changed foreign policy and changed the course of history in this country in Trump's presidency. And there must be accountability. There has to be actual criminal accountability for those who lied. And I can't wait to see this administration do.
Tulsi Gabbard brings a unique insider's perspective, dismantling Hillary's foreign policy legacy with surgical precision. From questionable decisions in the Middle East to cozy ties with powerful elites, Tulsi exposes a track record riddled with contradictions and moral compromises. Her critique zeroes in on how Hillary's policies often clashed with the ideals she claimed to champion, painting a portrait of a politician more invested in power than progress.
The fact that all of these pieces fit quite seamlessly together, creating a very clear timeline that shifted from before the election, the intelligence community almost uniformly saying essentially that Russia is trying to sow discord in the US election, but has no preference for one candidate over another. And then all of a sudden, Trump wins the election, surprising many people, both here and abroad, as we've learned in later documents that we've reviewed, that throughout that campaign, Russia believed that Hillary Clinton would win the election.
Together, Megyn Kelly and Tulsi deliver a devastating takedown that exposes the cracks in Hillary's armor. The scandals, the gaffes, and the persistent failure to inspire genuine trust. Their combined voices unravel the myth of Hillary Clinton, revealing a political career defined less by achievement and more by controversy and missed chances. It's a relentless roast that leaves no room for spin or apology, a candid reckoning with a figure who once seemed untouchable, but now stands thoroughly dismantled.
And our audience knows this, and you guys, but just for the record, let's play SOT 10.
I do think that he knows that he's an illegitimate president. I believe he knows he's an illegitimate president. He knows that there were a bunch of different reasons why the election turned out the way it did. And as I've been telling candidates who have come to see me, you can run the best campaign, you can even become the nominee, and you can have the election stolen from you.
We're trying to tell the American people the truth and expose these people, many of whom you just showed, for who they are as the propaganda arm of the deep state, which would have no power and no influence if they weren't able to feed their lies into a willing spokesperson through the propaganda media.
Hillary Clinton's political career has been a spectacle of contradictions, a roller coaster ride filled with high expectations and crushing disappointments. Tulsi and Kelly don't just point to her missteps. They spotlight the disconnect between the carefully crafted public image and the messy reality behind the scenes. It's the story of a politician who mastered the art of staying in the spotlight, but struggled to win the hearts of the people she claimed to represent.
So what is so concerning about what Hillary Clinton is doing here is she is not only calling me a traitor, she is not only trying to smear my character, she's sending a warning out to every veteran, every single American, anyone who stands up against the warmongering foreign policies that really are her legacy, that have been so destructive and costly to my brothers and sisters in uniform.
Kelly's critique zeroes in on Hillary's communication style, polished but hollow, rehearsed but lacking authenticity. She paints a vivid picture of a politician whose words often felt scripted, as if spoken from a teleprompter designed to charm focus groups rather than inspire real connection. Kelly's sharp observations highlight how Hillary's lofty promises and grand visions often rang hollow to voters tired of political doublespeak. This wasn't a leader who energized a movement. It was a politician desperately clinging to relevance in a shifting landscape. Meanwhile, Tulsi's insider perspective adds another layer to the takedown as she dissects Hillary's foreign policy record. From Libya's destabilization to the chaos in Syria, Tulsi reveals how Hillary's decisions carried devastating consequences, exposing a pattern of interventionist policies that contradicted the ideals of peace and diplomacy she claimed to uphold.
And as she got closer to Election Day, she decided to concoct two lies about Donald Trump to distract from her email scandal. She got the Steele dossier through this Fusion GPS company that her campaign paid, and she got this group CrowdStrike, which was the one responsible for the hack into that's the one that said that the Russians hacked the DNC email.
Megyn Kelly doesn't hold back on Hillary's attempts to control the narrative through the media. She highlights how the Clinton campaign wielded influence over coverage and silenced dissent, creating an atmosphere where criticism was punished rather than addressed. This wasn't transparent leadership. It was a tightly managed PR machine protecting a fragile image. Tulsi sharpens the critique by addressing Hillary's inability to reckon with the changing political landscape, pointing out how she failed to understand working-class discontent. This disconnect, Tulsi argues, opened the door for opponents to exploit vulnerabilities in her platform. The roast also dives into the infamous email scandal, a defining moment both women agree was more than a hiccup. Tulsi frames it as symbolic of broader ethical lapses and questionable judgment that crippled Hillary's credibility.
When I resigned as vice chair of the DNC in 2016, specifically so that I could campaign against Hillary Clinton in that Democratic primary.
Kelly points out the contradictions in Hillary's rise. She broke glass ceilings, yet her tactics sometimes clashed with the solidarity expected of a feminist icon. Tulsi echoes this by noting missed opportunities to build genuine coalitions, instead favoring political calculation that alienated allies. As the roast continues, they dismantle the myth of inevitability around Hillary's career, showing how overconfidence and strategic missteps cost her dearly. Kelly stresses how Hillary underestimated grassroots movements and the hunger for real change, while Tulsi calls her rise a cautionary tale of ambition unmoored from public responsiveness. Together, they show how Hillary's legacy is complicated, commanding loyalty from some while embodying frustration from many others.
One of the pieces that Glenn and I were getting close to in the discussion was the Hillary piece of this and the evidence, because that is, they do name a couple of names in this appendix on who came up with this scam. And the name that we keep seeing over and over, as one of them at least, was Julianne Smith. Schellenberger writes Julianne. It's Julianne. He writes, the alleged creator of the plan was Julianne Smith, a Clinton policy advisor.
The conclusion lands hard and undeniable. Kelly and Tulsi portray Hillary not as a victim of circumstance, but as the architect of her own downfall. They argue her legacy will be remembered less for achievements and more for missed opportunities, failed trust, and a carefully crafted image that crumbled under scrutiny. This isn't just a roast. It's a reckoning, urging people to move beyond myths and media spin to confront the realities of one of America's most scrutinized political figures. Kelly and Tulsi remind us that in politics, as in life, authenticity and accountability matter more than polished speeches and staged optics. What emerges is the portrait of a woman who tried to be everything to everyone and ended up being nothing to anyone.
Also, in this latest House report, they talk about how they also in the House, this is the House in 2020, pointing out that the ICA of 2017 ignored evidence that Putin seemed to be protecting Hillary Clinton in a couple of ways. It did not mention, for example, that Putin chose not to leak info he appeared to have on Hillary Clinton's health, including that she suffered from psycho-emotional problems and was on daily tranquilizers. We don't know whether that's true. We know that Putin appeared to have that intel in his pocket and chose not.
Leaving the criminal charges to the Department of Justice. I am not an attorney, but as I've said previously, when you look at the intent behind creating a fake manufactured intelligence document that directly contradicts multiple assessments that were created by the intelligence community, the expressed intent and what followed afterward can only be described as a years-long coup and a treasonous conspiracy against the American people.
Kelly exposes the calculated nature of Hillary's public image, crafted to appeal broadly, but resonating with very few. The polished speeches, rehearsed empathy, and forced relatability all rang hollow, turning authenticity into a casualty of optics. Kelly cuts deep, pointing out that voters always sense when the act is fake, and that gap becomes fatal. Tulsi then adds her insider perspective, tearing into Hillary's foreign policy calculus. From reckless interventions to cozy ties with global elites, she highlights decisions that destabilized entire regions. Together, they show how political compromises and missed chances eroded trust and credibility beyond repair.
So the Russians were able to hack Leonard, and that's where they saw the plan. And we now have in the Durham Annex, like full screen grabs of the Russian memos that the Dutch got their hands on and leaked to us, where the Russians are recounting exactly what they saw Leonard discussing about this Hillary Clinton fan and emissary, Julianne Smith, and how they were going to stop Trump, undermine Trump, but most importantly, distract from Hillary's email scandal.
Kelly takes on Hillary's media strategy, showing how attempts to silence dissent backfired and created defensiveness rather than openness. Tulsi emphasizes that in an era craving transparency, these tactics only fueled suspicion. Both highlight Hillary's failure to connect with working-class voters, whose economic anxieties went unanswered, leaving a void rivals exploited. The infamous email scandal comes under fire again, with Kelly mocking the botched damage control, while Tulsi frames it as proof of deeper ethical problems. They also touch on contradictions in Hillary's stance on women's rights, championing feminist rhetoric while undermining rivals, weakening what could have been a unifying message.
This woman should be in jail. Literally, Hillary Clinton should be behind bars. And so should the people who worked for her who did this. This is so blatantly corrupt. She wanted to distract from her email scandal. She cooked up a plan to accuse Trump of being a Russian agent in order to distract from her own legitimate scandal. She made up a scandal about Trump being a Russian.
As the critique builds, Kelly and Tulsi dismantle the myth of Hillary's inevitability, showing how overconfidence blinded her to grassroots energy and the hunger for change. Kelly reveals a candidate who underestimated the potency of bottom-up movements, while Tulsi underscores how this fatal miscalculation doomed her campaign. Their roast closes with a broader reflection. Political success isn't just about breaking barriers, it's about building trust. Hillary Clinton's story, they argue, is both a warning and a guidepost, a reminder that without authenticity and responsiveness, even the most polished figures can collapse under their own contradictions.